Checks and balances refer to a system within a government or organisation designed to prevent any one branch or individual from gaining too much power. By dividing authority among multiple branches, each has the ability to limit or influence the others. This structure ensures that power is balanced and promotes fairness, accountability, and the rule of law. In many governments, checks and balances involve separate branches such as the executive, legislative, and judicial, each with distinct roles and the ability to review or restrict actions taken by the others. The concept of checks and balances dates back to ancient times, but it became most prominent during the Enlightenment period. Philosophers like Montesquieu in the 18th century wrote extensively about the need to divide government power to prevent tyranny. Montesquieu's book, The Spirit of the Laws, outlined the idea that separating powers into different branches would safeguard liberty. This principle was later adopted in modern democracies, particularly in the United States Constitution, where the Founding Fathers designed a government based on Montesquieu's ideas. They believed that a system of checks and balances would provide the necessary protections to ensure freedom and justice. Now let's look at some examples. In governments with a system of checks and balances, the legislative branch can create laws, but the executive branch has the power to veto them. This prevents laws from being passed without consideration by both branches. For instance, in the United States, the president can veto a bill passed by Congress, but Congress can override the veto with a 2/3 majority vote. Another example can be seen in the judicial branch, which has the power to review laws and executive actions to ensure they are constitutional. If a law violates the Constitution, the courts can strike it down, even if both the legislative and executive branches support it. This prevents abuse of power and ensures that the rights of citizens are upheld. Additionally, checks and balances occur within the legislative branch itself. For example, in bicameral systems like the US Congress, the Senate and the House of Representatives must agree on the same version of a bill before it can become law. This internal check ensures thorough debate and review of proposed legislation. Now let's look at some benefits of checks and balances. One major benefit is that it prevents the concentration of power in a single branch or individual. By dividing responsibilities and requiring cooperation between branches, the system reduces the risk of tyranny or dictatorship. This creates a government that is more stable and fair. Another benefit is that checks and balances promote accountability. Each branch must justify its actions to the others, which encourages transparency and responsible decision-making. For instance, when the executive branch proposes a new policy, the legislative branch may question its effectiveness or legality, prompting a thorough review. Finally, checks and balances encourage compromise and cooperation. Because no single branch can act alone, officials must work together to achieve their goals. This often leads to more balanced and carefully considered policies that take multiple perspectives into account. While this process can be slow, it helps ensure that decisions are not made hastily or without sufficient input. Now let's look at some downsides of checks and balances. One downside is that the system can lead to inefficiency and gridlock. Because each branch has the power to block or delay the actions of the others, it can take a long time for decisions to be made. For example, if the legislative and executive branches strongly disagree on an issue, it may result in a stalemate where no progress is achieved. This can frustrate citizens who expect swift action on important matters. Another downside is that checks and balances can create confusion about responsibility. When multiple branches share power, it is not always clear who is accountable for certain decisions or failures. For instance, if a new policy leads to unintended consequences, each branch might shift the blame to another, leaving the public unsure of who is truly responsible.